Hey guys, I have a confession to make. When I first started reading classic literature, I made a lot of mistakes. The main reason why I wanted to do this video is because I hear from a lot of people on Bookstagram or in someplace else that they struggle with classic literature. Now, I've come a long way too, and I have made some horrible mistakes when I started reading classic literature. I think my first book that I bought myself and that I actually read by myself was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And I remember that I finished the book and I didn't even really know what I had been reading, and I felt stupid. And in the beginning of my journey of classic literature, I felt horribly stupid. I felt like I wasn't made to read it, that I wasn't smart or intelligent enough to read it, that I was in need of some English literature degree to fully understand or grasp what I was reading. And I was wrong. I am hoping that this video will be helpful if you are looking to start reading the classics, but you don't really know how to start, or you feel as lost as I felt in that moment finishing Wuthering Heights. Today I will give you all of my tips that I have for you, that I've learned from my own mistakes, and so I'm hoping it'll be helpful. My first tip would be, if you don't know where to start, because there are so many books, there are so many authors, and it can be intimidating to pick one of the books to start with. Now, just take a look, go on YouTube, find a YouTuber that you connect with, look at their recommendations, and try to find this book that really sparks an interest. And I would say just start reading, order the book, go to the library and get one, and just start. Now, the next tip that I have for you, and this was one of my biggest mistakes, is to go slow. You are going into this book knowing that you are going to give it 100% of your attention. This is going to be so important, because I used to read and finish the book and not really knowing what I read, which is, to be honest, very embarrassing, because I couldn't even summarize the book or what I read. I think this was because at some point I felt like I was a bit bored, and then I started reading faster, which was some of the things that I shouldn't have done. I started reading faster and I started missing things, and then you get into the spiral of, I want to finish this book as soon as possible. And one of the things that I find really important, or that I started to find really important in reading books, is to get something out of it, like truly getting what the author wanted you to see and feel and live. So the end goal for me, when I finish a book, I want to say, I have learned a lesson. I have learned what the author was messaging. I understood the story, I understood the characters, and I really want to be able to summarize what the novel was truly about. If you're a bit like me and you can read multiple hours at the same time, it might be a good idea to read multiple books. And that is also something that I previously have never done. It is something that developed over the years, and that is that I started reading multiple books at the same time. And I really noticed that it helped me to read more and to give books the attention and the time they deserve. What I currently do is I read one book for fun. That means that it'll be something light and something that doesn't need a lot of thinking, because sometimes I'm just too tired and I want to relax and not think too much. The second book that I pick is a book in my second language, which is French. And I started doing it since like 1 year ago. I started really focusing on improving my French. The third book that I pick is a classic literature book. Right now, that is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and I'm absolutely loving it. Oh my god, it is such a good book. I will do a separate video on it because I love it so much. And I really want to go in detail with you guys, so that video will be coming up. Another thing that can really help is to do some background research. I feel like sometimes when I read a classic literature piece and I know the background of this author and where he or she has been going through and what he or she believed in, it really helps me to understand where the author was coming from when writing the novel, and it can really make a difference. For example, when I first read The Hunchback of Notre Dame, I wasn't aware that Victor Hugo was mainly writing this novel out of his love for architecture and for trying to preserve the Notre Dame Cathedral. So it gives like this extra dimension. So if you want to put in the work and if you want to do some background research, I promise you it'll help so much, and it can really improve your reading experience, in my opinion. Tip number 5 is I need you to allow yourself to fully understand that you are reading a novel written in a completely different time period. The dialogue is going to be stiffer, it's going to be harder to read, and I need you to fully understand that it's going to take 100% of your energy, way more energy than if you would be reading a modern day fiction novel. Tip number 6 is do feel free to start with shorter novels if that is something that you are intimidated by. If you are intimidated by big books, do not start your classic reading journey with Les Miserables or Anna Karenina. Just start reading smaller books first. Tip number 7 is actually almost not a tip, but I wanted to say it anyway. If you enjoy the novel the first time, then I promise you will even enjoy it more the second time you read it. I feel like the more I reread my favorite novels, the more I get out of them, and it's just something that I want you to be aware of, that sometimes it feels like the more you read a novel, the better it gets, if you know what I mean. Like, you were impressed the first time, but then the second time it gets more real, if you know what I mean. It's just something really special. So if you really, really love a novel the first time, make sure to one day read it the second time. Tip number 8. If you are really struggling, one thing that I've done is to look up a summary of the novel and then read the summary up until the point that you stopped reading, because it's gonna help you understand what was going on, what is happening. Maybe some of the characters are a little bit confusing. It can really pull you out of that unknown zone. It can really bring you back into the novel with a new energy. So if you're a bit stuck but you don't want to give up reading, look up a summary of the novel and maybe you can revisit your reading with a new energy. Another thing that really helps me out when I'm reading a book is to annotate. That means that I'm going to use sticky notes in different colors, and I'm going to mark my book with these sticky notes. And usually, like I said, I'm reading Anna Karenina, very good book. And as you can see, I have all kinds of markings on the side. I'm halfway, I think. And these annotations really help me remember things. They help me remember which quotes I liked, and I always like to share them on my Instagram. When I'm sharing photos of the book, I also like to include a quote. And what also really helps is to write things down in my journal. So I have a journal just for my everyday life, and I write things down in it. But like, I think 1 year ago I also started using it to write down my thoughts on the books that I've read. I will show you an example. I, by the way, also do it with movies because I tend to remember it better. This was, for example, Frankenstein on the right, and then Persuasion on the left. It really helps me to form an opinion about the book, to find a deeper meaning, to get to know the characters more, and yeah, it's just something that I would highly recommend if you haven't tried it yet. Just try and write down the things that come to mind when you're reading the novel and your feelings towards it and everything that is going on inside your head. I have an extensive list of books that I still want to read, of authors that I still want to read, and I am beyond excited to work on this list and to add authors and to get to know more books. And I think it has become one of my missions to read at least one book of every famous author that has ever lived. So yeah, I'm hoping that this video has been a bit useful for those who are starting out their journey. So exciting. I'm gonna go now.